A former investment manager at Celsius Network filed a lawsuit against a cryptocurrency lender on Thursday, alleging that it had frozen customer funds after using customer deposits to rig the price of its own cryptocurrency token and failing to properly manage risk. According to the complaint, Celsius operated a Ponzi scheme to profit itself through gross manipulation of customer deposits and tricked plaintiff Kefi Incorporated, which was run by former manager Jason Stone, into providing services worth millions of dollars while failing to pay for them. For more on these headlines, across over to London, we're joined by international financial analyst Okpe Oluwadapo Thomas. Okpe, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. I want to start in Japan. What do you make of the drop in household spending?
We're expecting it to drop. Everyone is now being parsimonious and frugal with their money. You can't expect inflation to be at this type of prices and high prices of goods and services and expect people to spend. So a lot of people have cut back on their spending. And the truth is, a lot of citizens know the reason why. You are going to actually put it down to the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which obviously has made sure oil price is high. And now with the ultra-loose policy by the Japanese central bank, we've seen a depreciating yen. We need to remember that the yen dropped down to a 20-year low to the US dollar, which has made importation more expensive, and obviously it has cut down on businesses spending, and obviously that's had a ripple effect in household spending as well, because now business spending obviously will mean that they have to increase cost, and increased cost obviously is basically transferring the expenses you're getting from external variables to the consumer. And now consumers obviously will have to retreat and assess their needs and expenditure. So this basically is what happens in Japan as well. So we're talking about loose monetary policy that has reduced the the purchasing earning power. We're talking about inflation, which has increased the cost of goods and services. We're talking about oil prices that are rising and at certain levels that is also unsustainable for a country such as Japan. And then when you combine all these factors with the recent wave of COVID, because the truth is that now we're having COVID and people are not actually going out to eat out, and everyone is rather staying at home. So obviously you combine all these factors and then you understand why household spending has reduced to this certain level.
Thanks. So let's move to the UK. What do you make of the warning for the Office of Budget Responsibility on the Tory government's ability to cut taxes at this particular time?
It's a very, very loud cry for tax cuts. I think it's nearly impossible as well to reduce taxes. Everyone obviously in England does not really like taxes, and the higher taxes we get, and obviously it affects our purchasing power. But the truth is that that's what finances the company, that's what the country, that's what finances pensioners, and this is where the issue is. So now, because of certain policies such as net zero policies, and also an aging population where we have so much pensioners, and obviously you have to send social care to these pensioners, you have to take care of them because they can't work, and obviously you're going to have to increase taxes to take care of people. So this is a cyclical social experiment we're in, where the young people who are working, you tax them more so you can take care of the older people. Now we're having more older people, which has expanded the net of expenditure. So how do you want to now make up for financing if you reduce tax cuts by borrowing? No, you're certainly not going to borrow, because obviously borrowing will put the country's levels into a huge debt, and then you can spark a recession by in 2050, a possible recession, because right now the debt levels in England is about 75% of their current GDP. So if you increase public expenditure, then you are going to have more issues. So the best way for them to reduce to help their finances is to reduce expenditure rather than increase taxes.
But what does that put the? I think we might have talked about this already. Zahawi, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, he says he's going to review this tax issues. He's going to review them, as far as them not being raised. He's going to review tax cuts. Does that put them in the new leaders in the UK with this leadership change with Boris Johnson resigning? Talk about the balancing act, because that's what he says. Zahawi says he wants to do that. He wants to, look at taxes being cut. How tough is that balancing act?
Well, now it's now stretching to a political issue. The Conservative Party, they prefer bigger government, and then some of them prefer smaller government and business and increasing taxes. So now it's about the balancing act. We also need to know that Rishi Sunak, the former Exchequer of Chancellor, former Chancellor, basically also was in the rollout phase of new increases in taxes. So obviously Zawai is reviewing it as the new Exchequer. And he has a role to play now, because that's what's going to even happen leading to the election of a new leader for the Conservative Party. We all know Boris Johnson stepped down yesterday and resigned. So there's talk of a new leader. But which new leader can bring out this policy of taxes? Which one has the what would I call it, the charisma to carry this out? So these are the things that they're going to consider. Like I said, it's now a political issue, because the truth is, you don't want to take the Conservative Party don't want to what do I call it, go back to the years of the Labour Party where they were just increasing taxes on the rich, and obviously that would offset some of their political fan base. But so now we're having a political issue, a political risk, and the new finance minister has to address it. It's quite unfortunate that in the midst of a global crisis, the UK government has changed the prime minister. I mean, that's what Boris Johnson said yesterday. But the truth is, business has to be done. Government is a continuum, and the prime minister has a new role to play.
Going to be really, really interesting to see how things work out. Let's move to the United States. What do you make of the forecast for job growth slowing in June with those non-farm payrolls numbers we expect later today?
Well, now it's very hard to see a recession if you are going to have so many job openings. So at the moment, we have 11.9 job openings in America. What does that mean? That means that for every one person, unemployed person, you have 1.9 jobs. So how are you going to get a recession? Because people can work. I mean, there's room for productivity. Although that there are other sections or there are other sectors of the economy that is slowing down on job employment. But in the business section, a lot of companies are scrambling for workers. So its unemployment rate is low. It's about a 50-year low. And obviously, this also shows that there's going to be a lot of productivity, because this is the metric we're trying to use to understand if they're going to get a recession or if the Federal Reserve is going to increase basis points. Increase interest rates by maybe 75 basis points, because he has to address it from the manufacturing data. Any data they get from here gives a total picture or a total reflection of the macro economy. So if people are getting into jobs, then you are going to be a bit dovish on exchange rate, interest rate policy. But if people are not getting jobs and businesses cannot cope with spending and expenditure, then they might have to alter the interest rate. So this is a very thin line the Federal Reserve have to watch. So we're expecting the non-farm payroll forecast today, and then we'll be able to make our decision on that.
Very quickly, less than 30 seconds. Celsius being accused of Ponzi's. What do you make of the branding for crypto in general, with where prices are and all these liquidations, debts, and now Ponzi accusations? Well, what do you make of it very quickly?
Well, we've been calling for regulation in the crypto market. I mean, and this is the reason why you can't just have access to consumers' funds like that. In a properly regulated market, for example, in England, you have the Financial Control Authority, which obviously oversees any financial institution that wants to interact with consumers, because as the prerogative of regulatory bodies is to protect consumer protection. But because of the USP of crypto, which is decentralized organizations, decentralized regulation, people can interact with people without any government interference. You have things like this, and that's why you get a lot of investors who be rug pulled. It is the term that a lot of people use when investors put their money in an asset and they can't, find the asset again. So this is the issue we're having. And now this lawsuit obviously will strengthen the calls for regulation, because the European Central Bank has also talked about European countries putting in strong crypto regulation so that investors don't put out their money. I mean, if you want to do a transaction in your bank in England, for example, your bank will send you a reminder and ask you, is this transaction for cryptocurrency? Because cryptocurrency has gotten a lot of people in trouble. I mean, you don't have that type of skill. In the finance market, or in the stock market, if the stock market is declining, we have what we call a type of lever that ensures that the market does not decline to zero. But we don't have that in cryptocurrency. The market can fall from $68,000 all the way to $20,000, like we've seen with Bitcoin, and it can keep dropping. No one knows where it's going to stop. There's no shock. There's no type of shock absorber in terms of it. So we have to analyze this as the need for regulation. I mean, cryptocurrency has its pros, it has its benefits, helps in transfer, faster payments, helps in remittances, helps in other sorts of activities, but also it also creates room for fraud, scam, and also illicit transaction and money laundering. So they have to find a thick line or a thin line between cryptocurrency and obviously regulation.
Okpaloa Dakwa Thomas, international financial analyst in the UK. Thanks for taking us through the headlines. Appreciate your insights as always.